Hello, everyone, and welcome to Camera Culture, a series from Whale FM putting the diverse creators of the NFT photography movement into focus. My guest today is Adam Carity, the night-crawling lensman that deftly harnesses the nuance of light, perspective, motion, and swagger to create lush cinematic photography with a gritty storytelling edge. Adam, thank you so much for coming on to chop it up with us today.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. That's some intro there. I'll take it.
Hey, definitely had to drag out the new and improved introduction, even for the countdown for this, because I was so excited for this interview. As you probably know, I've been following you for some time, even before a lot of these initiatives had started here at Whale with photography. Just you really caught my eye with some of the stuff that you were doing. So excited to have you on board. And likewise, it was something that was requested from the community. So always happy to see that and have creators that come on.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm flattered. It's an honor to be here with you. And likewise, yeah, I appreciate the follow, and I enjoy what the Whale community does. I just wish I could get in the Discord more frequently. I do what I can, though. I try to show up as much and when I can.
You know what? It's here for you when you do. I feel the inverse, right? With Twitter, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many messages in these private groups. It's crazy for me. But we do have a lot of tools at our disposal for community. So that's definitely dope. So before we get too far along, if you could just give me a brief introduction, tell me about yourself and your background and journey in photography and art.
Yeah. So my name's Adam Carity, obviously, and I am an Arizona native, born and raised. I've been in Arizona, which is in the United States, for those listening in other countries. 42 years old. So I'm starting to climb up there, I feel, in age, not like a lot of these youngsters in the space, but I still feel good. I've got a wife and 4 kids. The 4th just came this past September on the 24th. We have,
congratulations.
Thank you. We've got 3 boys and added a girl to the addition to the family. So we're excited to have a new bundle of joy in our lives. My kids keep me busy, which kind of hinders the photography side of things a little bit, but we'll get to that in a few. Photography started, I would say, probably 2015. I had just sold a recent business of mine, and I started working on a startup that was charity focused. And with that startup, I wanted to document the process. And around that time, I started getting into a lot of the vlogging stuff on YouTube, just following like Casey Neistat and some other vloggers. And I just kind of gravitated towards what they were doing. And I was like, hey, you know, that looks kind of cool. I think I want to do that for my startup journey in case it blows, or just to have for my own archives to look back on. And so I bought a camera. My first camera was a Canon T3i, and I started using that, and that sucked. So I upgraded myself to the Canon T6i, and I started going out and doing vlog stuff first. And that vlogging and video slowly morphed into taking photos of some of the people that I was interacting with. I started doing just, portraits of people that were a part of my startup. And since it was charity focused, I was out in the streets a lot, helping homeless people and interacting with a lot of individuals. And I would take portraits of them. Then fast forwarding, I started getting on Instagram, and I stumbled across this community called Depth Obsessed. And Depth Obsessed kind of coined, at least to my knowledge, coined the term ground game. The person that started it, his name's Doug Rule, and person that he co-started it with, EM1T, somebody that the space knows from rooftopping. Doug's a rooftopper as well, but EM1T rolls around with drift and scales buildings and base jumps off of them and all this crazy stuff, right? But going back to Depth Obsessed, the shallow depth of field, night, out of focus elements really, really caught my attention and piqued my interest. A lot of like what you're showing here on the screen. And the perspectives are ground perspectives. You put your camera on the ground, and magic happens when the light reflects off of, and a lot of it is when it's raining out. So the wet surfaces, the reflections, the refractions of the light. And when you do it at a shallow depth of field, anywhere between 1.2 and 2.8, a lot of magic happens. It's a lot of abstract, which I gravitate towards. And I've always been into art. But before the camera stuff, when I was a kid, I used to draw and sketch a lot. And I used to actually want to be an animator for Disney. So growing up,
Wow.
I did a lot of sketching, and I've got some sketches tucked away in an attic at my mom's somewhere, I'm sure. I've yet to try to hunt them down, but I was into painting as well, painting like the Impressionism, like the Renaissance painters. And so with stuff like this, the photography, it's reminiscent to me of impressionistic paintings. And so that's kind of my goal when I go out to take photos of this style, is to have it like an impressionistic painting, if that's the correct term or a term at all. But yeah, so 2015 is when the journey began. I didn't really fully get into what you're showing on the screen until probably about mid 2018, maybe early 2018. Instagram is kind of what catapulted me forward in that lane. And the night stuff, the street photography, I shoot it all. I don't know, to my demise sometimes, but I try not to stay boxed in. I go out and I see things, I see moods, I see moments, I see artistic things, and I try to make art out of it all. And the camera's my tool.
Yeah, I mean, so much to unpack there. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing.
Let's
No,
unpack it.
it's awesome. When I saw your work, I really gravitated towards it because of what you're talking about. It's like you were taking these elements and sharing it from kind of a different perspective and saying, almost like the impressionists, right? Like, I saw this, let me slap the paint on here to capture the essence of some of the art happening, and not so much a literal depiction of exactly what I'm looking at, right? An impression of it, what the vibes, the cinematic almost feel. I feel like there's like almost storytelling elements in some of the things that you do as well. And it really gives it a mood, so to speak. And it's interesting looking at your earlier work, like you mentioned. I saw some nature, I saw, certainly you had people that you were working with different aesthetics and stuff like that. And then, obviously you're really, really, really good when you go out at night and try to catch some of that light refraction as well. So it definitely comes across. I want to dive in there a little bit deeper, but you said you're from Arizona. Are you born and raised Arizona?
Yep, born and raised, man. I've yet to escape the desert.
Okay. I know our own Noisy was out there not long ago. There may have been some shenanigans happening. Not sure. I don't want to incriminate anyone, so I won't speak on it.
He owes me a rain check on that one.
Oh, okay. So now I did incriminate someone already. My bad. My
Yeah,
bad, noisy.
I've
Uh,
razzed him already. We're yep.
you talk about 2015. Kind of getting more involved with photography. Prior to that, you were, into sketching or whatever. Was there an art influence in your family, or was it something you just gravitated towards for your self-expression?
Yeah. So my mom is the artist in the family, and she actually illustrated books. She did Christian children books and had a company where they put together books and sold them to churches, and so that's kind of I would say where my artistic DNA was gathered from, and that's where my love for drawing actually came. And yeah, I would attribute that to her.
Very cool. And then you talk about 2015, kind of picking up the camera more seriously. I saw it alluded to in some other media that you had done, that you went through a kind of a time of trials and tribulations shortly after that, and kind of found, using the camera to be something that was cathartic for you and kind of helped you, in your healing process. Is that something that you still find the medium something that helps you do, or was that really a catalyst to help you kind of push things forward?
I would say both. With yeah, I mean it's both because now it is my escape. I I have a full time job outside of my hobby, which is photography. Which, like many, I would love for that to be a full time job, but being 42, married with 4 kids, and a full time career that I had to hustle hard to get because my childhood was a wreck, and I got into a lot of trouble as a kid, which made it hard for me to find a career path. And so I have to kind of stick with that for now because I do have responsibilities, mouths to feed and whatnot. But my time is very limited. So in the day-to-day stresses of life, just in general, and then when any type of heavy life events happen, trials and things that we all face, photography is my outlet. So when the night comes and kids are in bed, wife time is done, and the wife is in bed, that's when I venture out. So, and even with that comes the stresses because, the places that I go a lot of times to shoot are not that safe, relatively speaking, when out at the times at night that I go out. But it's just one of those things that you got to do, at least that I feel I have to do, because it brings that clarity to me that I need in these life moments. This is my outlet, and to create something beautiful out of that is the icing on the cake. So
Yeah, I I really appreciate that, and I almost feel like in some of these pictures you can feel that anxiety or that tension. Like it's like late at night, it's kind of the unknown, what's happening, but you're catching like a millisecond, a fleeting moment with some movement, and so I think the emotional, how it emotionally resonates, lends to its appeal, at least for me personally. But it really does come through in the way that you go ahead and do that.
oh, that's
Um,
amazing. I'm glad somebody's getting it.
Now you mentioned that you use this for a lot of different things. It was an escape. You were running a charitable project at one point in time, and then kind of pivoted on and had to do. You said you continue to do your full time. I think some in our community would actually say that that's freeing in a sense that some people that are career artists and creatives, almost feel the impetus to have to create sometimes when it's not necessarily on the forefront of their mind, right? Like
Yeah.
it's different when you're doing it just because you got the urge and you got the creative inspiration to go out and create versus like I have to hit a deadline or I'm trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z with a sale. So, there's flip sides to a coin. Um,
Yeah.
but the authenticity definitely comes through in your work.
Oh, that's amazing. And like eh, it's like an echo chamber, right? With this, I would create. I have been creating before NFTs ever hit, or before at least I ever knew about them. And I would create if it all went to shambles tomorrow, I'd still go out and create and find a medium to share what I'm creating. I create for myself, but I love sharing it, and I love hearing feedback, because, that's to me what art's all about. I mean, if you're not going to share it, what good is it? I like the bad, I like the good comments, constructive criticism, it all, because art's subjective to an extent, right? So, yeah, I mean, making a career out of it, I guess I should touch on that. What I mean by that, obviously, to make money off your craft is cool, but to have clients and deadlines, that's kind of, I mean, the appeal of NFTs is more so what I would look forward to than having a commercial client with a deadline and the stress and pressure to create something that they want. As much as I would love to find a client that would trust me with my vision, to be able to create within this Web3 space and find art collectors that see something in my art and want to pay to own that, or to, whatever, that's the appeal. And if I can get to a level like some of these other artists are, to where there's supplemental income there, to where I don't have to work as many hours in my day job, so I can take that time and spend it with my real priorities, which are my family. That's the goal. But with or without the money, I'm okay. And I still love art, and I'd still create, but hey, it's.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate. I'm a lapsed musician myself, and certainly one of
Nice.
the things that really appealed to me about NFTs was before the monetary blow up, right? It was, someone was talking to me about, hey, this is a technology that allows you to put your art on the blockchain so it can possibly live in perpetuity. And I thought, that's incredible. Like, that's
Yes.
because I always said that. I said I love art, music, photography, whatever, because it can encapsulate a feeling, an emotion, or something you want to express, put it in this tiny capsule that can then just reverberate, and people can feel it long after you're gone. Right? It's like
Yes.
a time capsule of emotions and thoughts, and to be able to do that is powerful. And then to put it onto the blockchain and harness technology to do that more, to me was like, wow, I need to check this out. Right. So
Amazing.
that's why I was interested initially, and that's why I'll still be interested should everything fall out. It sounds like that's kind of your vision as well, which I think we'll touch on near the end, kind of your approach and your thought process on the
Sure.
market and how people do that. But I did want to talk a bit about the diversity in your style that you have. You touched on a progression. I saw some really old stuff like on your Facebook, people with gas masks and stuff looking really cool.
I don't even know where you found that. Don't show that.
It
I
was
don't know
like,
what you.
it
Yeah.
looked like it was like for an album cover or something. It was cool, but it was definitely
I don't
different.
know.
How would you characterize, if someone asked you, how would you characterize your photography style and aesthetic?
Oh, hell, I don't know, man. I honestly, I try not to put a label on it. I don't know how to, because that's the thing. It's like I feel like I can, and I'm going to say this with humility. I feel like I can compete with a lot of people that are like getting buzz in a lot of different categories. I mean, landscape, I would say, and portraits are lower on the totem pole. And it's like anything, right? I guess the more you do something, the better you get. But I feel like I'm pretty well diversified in a lot of different realms. I mean, street photography is up there for me. The abstract street. I would say I'm an abstract night street photographer at most. But
I like it.
just even stuff like you're showing. I mean, to walk through a market and to catch something, to kind of try to tell a story, but wait for the person's eyes. Like I'm a big part of that. Sometimes I don't catch eyes, but I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm one of those people that when I go out, sometimes I go out a lot without an actual mission, and I let the environment speak to me. And when I see something, I've tried to train myself to be ready and non-hesitant to catch it. And no matter what, like, especially with street photography. And there's Jeremy Page, man, Eaten by Flowers. I've gained so much inspiration from this particular street photographer, over the years. His lack of fear to get the shot, no matter what, within reason. Because, like I said, I'm a father and a husband, and I don't need to disappear from this earth for a photo. But, I don't mind making somebody uncomfortable, I guess, as bad as that may sound. I mean, if you're out in public, hey, it's with respect of the situation.
Right.
but yeah, so that's my thing, man. I don't know if I have a label for myself. I just go out. A lot of time that I can go out is at night because of my life situation. So I've adapted to try to find art and beauty and interesting things to capture at night in those situations within the area. I live in my opinion, I live in a boring area for the kind of photography that I have gravitated towards, because Phoenix is nothing like a New York, nothing like a San Francisco, which this photo that you've got up there, that was taken in Chinatown in San Francisco. San Francisco has so much character. And fortunately, I got to go out there a couple years ago for work. The company that I was working for at the time, I'm an industrial hygienist by trade. And we were managing the environmental contract for the San Francisco airport, and I was managing it. And so I got to spend a couple months out in San Francisco, and man, it's night and day. The opportunities that you have and the things that you can capture compared to where I live, which is in Queen Creek, Arizona, which is a small little town on the outskirts of Phoenix, which is lame in and of itself in a comparison to a city like Chicago, Paris, New York, places with history and character and actual people walking around the streets. So I make do with what I can.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's I may have contributed to some sketchy scenes outside of Scottsdale in some of my time in Arizona. But that
Yeah.
that being said, you talk about getting into people's environment and making them uncomfortable for a shot. I would say that you have the ability to have make people uneasy looking at your photography afterwards. Like, I look at this, there's something slightly unsettling about it. Obviously it's a little bit macabre, right? But a lot of your pieces do that, and we talked about the anxiety before. Your ability to capture that element and convey it and put the emotion into it, I think is really, really cool.
That's
And
interesting, because honestly, man, I don't think I try, but I've heard that before, that
yeah,
the emotions will, transfer into my photos. I guess it's happening
yeah, and
subconsciously.
it's thematic, right? Like, it's an underlying thing. It could be subversive. It's not always as in your face maybe as this, but certainly there's elements of this, right, to various degrees, in my opinion,
Sure.
and a lot of your works. And um let's talk about iconography a little bit. This theme of kind of I don't want to say a darkness, but look, tapping something a little bit unsettling, finding that anxious moment. And I harken back to your PFP, which may be a coincidence, but to me makes it almost cohesive, right? Like, this is what I see on a lot of your presences, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's your Twitter or whatnot. Is there something behind this? Did you just think it was cool? I even saw way
Um,
back in your Twitter feed. I
yeah.
mean, on your Insta feed, right? So this has been with you for some time. Tell me
Yeah.
what this means.
Honestly, it was so getting onto, it's the anonymity of social media, right? Even though I'm well doxed among many, finding a PFP to go with my social profiles. I've always liked skulls. Growing up, I was well diversified in music, and um, a lot of my dad's friends were bikers, and they had like a lot of the old school black and white tattoos. A lot of it was skull art and things to that extent. And so I don't know, for some reason, I've always just gravitated towards skulls. And so to create a persona with a skull was kind of, it just kind of hit. And then with the hoodie, like I wear sweaters and hoodies a lot, and just the I don't know, for me it's kind of like I'm alive, but I feel dead inside sometimes. And that was around that period where I was going through some personal struggles. And uh it just, I mean, there's a lot that symbolizes, but I guess from a 10,000 foot view, that's where that evolved from, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. And I thought so, right? Because that thematic element that we're talking about, that kind of that lays under a lot of the work, at least what I get out of it. And obviously everything is interpretive here. But it all makes sense, and it all comes together and makes it even more appealing, quite honestly, because it's kind of an extension of you in that way that's even more intimate. Whereas if I just looked at this and didn't derive that from your PFP, I wouldn't have that same connection, right? Like this is a little bit dark. This is someone with a little bit of edge, right? At least
Right.
that's the way it comes across.
Well, and
Um,
the other thing that I've thought about recently, and I've never really, verbalized it with the PFP, like an opposite to what that may look at face value is. Underneath our skin, we're all the same, right? There's no color to bones, like people will look at on the outward appearance. So that's another thing for me.
many layers and nuance as a
Yep.
true artist. So I'm enamored with your ground game, as you're probably
Yeah.
you've seen
Yes.
me, you go over these pictures over and over again. Super dope. I especially loved the one that Alpha Trilogy picked up because that gave me big Ninja Turtle vibes. Like
Nice. Yeah.
like literally, but all of them are super dope, and I'm really looking forward to this continuing because I see that you have lots of stuff in this vein, and you capture it.
Yeah. So, with that said, like I've never been great at marketing myself. I've never really put a ton of focus into how to approach. I mean, I just kind of look at what's being done in the space. I jumped into the space and dropped a big collection of my abstract stuff, which is what happened from the ground game. It evolved into the abstract macro stuff, and it flopped. I mean, rightfully so. I didn't have a community. I thought I'd put some badass art out there, and people would like it and buy it, and not so much the case. Learn the hard way, which is all good because there was a learning in it. But yeah, this one, I burned a lot of these. But anyways, I guess what I'm getting at is with that ground game collection, rather than drop a whole bunch at once, it's kind of like a progressive thing. It might be older photos that I've taken from the past that I really, really love. It might be new ones. But I don't drop one until the previous one's collected, is kind of where I'm trying to, how I'm trying to approach it. But I don't know. I've got one up right now, this one. Yep. That's downtown Phoenix. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm just out there. I'm exploring. A sale's cool, but creating a cohesive collection, that's kind of cool too. But
No, I dig it. And then the more I look at it, I start seeing different things like the blurred signs in the background. Is that a direction? Obviously there's no left turns, but there's a lot of stuff that my mind starts wandering, and it's amazing to me when I think of what this is, right? And its simplicity, but I just never would see from that perspective or think to look at it from that way. There's such kind of a whole different world checking that out. But Noisy mentioned in the chat, and I think other people have, and some of our photography groups as well, have mentioned this macro photography here. I know you said that it didn't get the traction that you thought, but you talked earlier about having studied artists, and Impressionism, Jackson Pollock, etc. Talk to me a little bit about this and what you were trying to do.
So this is a passion and a love that I have still, and slow and grow with this one. I truly, honestly feel with the right support and backing that a collection like this could be worthy of a Christie's and a Sotheby's. I say that humbly, but I don't see anybody else in the space doing anything remotely close to this in the realm of photography, which is why I feel it's so unique in that sense, because these are photographs. This is a mirrored photograph, but this is light reflecting off of wet asphalt at a macro level. That this one's called Masquerade. That's a mirrored image. This was the first one in the collection to sell. And the one before it's called Aztec. This one's called Aztec, and this actually got featured in Amir's gallery, the Adelia Gallery, during NFT Liverpool. It was selected by NFT Girl for her collection. And some of the stuff has been featured. One Piece, Sloika featured on the Times Square, the Times Square screens where the ball drop. That got some screen time there. But yeah, I don't know, man. I have a past, like I said earlier, and that past involved a lot of psychedelics. My mid to late teens, I did a lot of mushrooms. I did a lot of acid, messed around with some ecstasy. Not, I mean, and personally now I'm not super proud of it, but it added to my experiences of life. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for anything because it's made me who I am and it's given me a vision and a perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And a lot of this kind of goes hand in hand with that experience of life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even someone before you said that said DMT like in the chat. So
Yeah,
that
that's
definitely
100%. Yep.
now we've
Oh, sorry.
interviewed with. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had a room full of black light posters and trippy posters and things of that nature to trip out on. And had I had these, I you know, who knows? I probably will never know what it's like to trip out to my own trippy work. But
That might.
if anybody in the sound of my voice does that kind of stuff and wants to give it a go and let me know how it went, I'm all for it.
Yeah, yeah. That might be some weird level inception. I don't know if you'd ever come out of it, man. So maybe it's for the better that you didn't. Noisy says straight edge nerds in the chat. Thanks, Noisy.
Yeah,
You
nice.
know, wow, this looks like oh, what's the character? One of the
This
characters from Pokemon.
this is the one that actually got featured by Sloika in Times Square.
Wow.
See, that's interesting. The one thing I like about these, everybody sees something different. So this one, the title for this one was called Cuttlefish. So a lot of people focus on the dark black pointy center as the head with the eyes and the mouth.
Right.
I saw the green parts that swirl out as tentacles, the two orbs above the black pointy part as the eyes, and then the blurred out part at top like a crown. So it kind of to me looked like one of those kooky octopuses that hide up under the bushes. So everybody sees something different, and that's why I love these images, because everybody sees something different. Sometimes people see the same thing, but it's interpretive.
Right. These are super dope. We've had other artists that are big in the space on, and basically they had said that, using psychedelics helped unlock something in their mind that really changed their artistic expression and what they had to do carrying forward with colors and all sorts of things. And then there were even some people talked about trying to emulate that with sleep deprivation and different techniques, so very cool that you can tap that experience and manifest it in a way visually, and we can share that with you. But I would agree. I think this, with the right traction, would definitely be something that could be museum worthy. Forget Christie's and Sotheby's. They're trying to sell, and I'm sure these would definitely sell, but this is something that could be displayed and celebrated.
Sure. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing too. We don't have to beat on it, but that's what art is, right? Because until somebody comes along and sees that, it probably will never get traction. It's anybody who's ever made it to any of these places because somebody in a position that has influence or clout come along and dug it and decided to take a leap forward. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, from a commercialization perspective, I suppose, right? But we're talking about it right now, and it's impactful and moving a group of people watching it. So it's art doing what art does, regardless of whether they try to validate it or not.
True.
But certainly from a business perspective, that plays a role. Wanted to touch on some of your other collections. And before I do that, can you help me understand? I tried to look it up, so I think I have a rough understanding. But for anyone that's not familiar, the term, is it bokeh?
Bokeh man.
Right now, this is bokeh man, but is bokeh something to do with light reflection?
Oh,
or
yeah. And I think it's bouquet
okay,
is the correct.
thank you.
Yeah, it's bouquet is the correct pronunciation, but most people will just say bokeh, which is the out of focus element, and it's Japanese maybe. It's an Asian term.
Okay.
As far as I understand, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's just basically the out of focus. See, here we go. The out of focus elements. But yeah, so like your little bokeh balls in the back, bouquet balls, whatever you want to call it. But I say bokeh, and that is bokeh man. He's an elusive creature.
It's like the Bigfoot of your photography. I love it.
It is. But capturing bokeh man It's hard to do. It's hard to capture it in that sense that you're looking at. I take a lot of out of focus images of people, but none of them, they don't all turn out the same.
Are these posed like you have a friend like
No,
trying to make the
no.
shot, or this is genuinely what shows up?
I'm 100% solo. 99.9 of the time, percent of the time I go out to shoot, I'm solo. So I don't ask people to pose. For me, in these kind of photograph situations, I think it's lame. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not hating on anybody if they
Right.
use friends to pose, but like, I don't go out in the street when it's raining with a friend and say, hey, go stand over here with an umbrella because it's going to look cool, which there's no problem to it. You're creating a mood. Just like, so backing up a little bit, in this ground game world that, a few of us live in, there's a term called water bottle guy. And it's somebody who goes out with a water bottle and pours water on these surfaces to create what wouldn't be there because it hadn't rained. So that's kind of like bringing a strobe out with you for a portrait photographer to create the light that's not there per se. I don't do that. I try to capture things as they are and try to stay organic in that sense. Not to say that I haven't poured water on some things in the past, but with the Boca Man thing, no, those are just people that were like standing in an alley, like the one to the very right, which was the first one in the series. That was just somebody standing in an alley as I was walking past, and it had rained the night before. So there was that puddle, and then a car was coming out. It just a moment that happened. I don't have a lot of these because they are unique moments and they have to look just right. And the people have to be doing, what they're doing just right for it to create this vibe that I'm looking for. And so, no, these are all moments, randomly captured. People I don't know.
Ominous Slender Man-esque, and it
Right?
still captures some of the some of the ground game stuff and some of the
Yep.
bouquet as well. So I really dig that. You're a creative dude, man. Adam, you're a creative dude on a lot of different fronts, and I think it's cool to see you experiment, but also amalgamate some of these things and bring them together with different themes. So it's you're a creative that I like to watch. I like to see your feed and what you're into, but also what's coming next, because I think that you're very diverse, and like you said, you can pull a lot of different talents and put stuff together. So I think a lot of people feel that way about your work.
Well, I appreciate all the love that people show, man. It's a humbling thing to have somebody follow you for your work, and the love that people show. It's I try to reciprocate as much as possible because I really sincerely appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you, there's this underlying thematic element, there's a dark edge, there's some real grit and almost storytelling element in a lot of your stuff that I see. I'm a musician, so I'm going to correlate it to something that that's easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can listen to music that's very polished and very produced, and it sounds great, and it could be super popular, but there's something magical when I hear Wu-Tang and it was done in RZA's basement, and it's just got
Mm-hmm.
it captures the essence of something that they were going through in life and they were expressing through it. They wanted that dirty, grimy, whatever it was, like element in it, so I
Yes.
definitely feel that in a lot of what you put out there.
Oh, that's big praise, man. I am a Wu fan. I think you and I probably come from the same era. Grew up around
Don't
the
tell
same
these guys.
things.
Don't know. They have no idea.
You said Wu, man. That's enough said. But yeah, no, I don't know that's we're all influenced, right? So I think a lot of things from those formative years of the later formative years. I heard it was who was it that I heard? Talib Kweli was talking about, and if you know Wu, I'm assuming you know Talib Kweli, but
Of
he was
course.
talking about there's a psychology aspect to it of a period of your life, and I don't want to say it's like the high school years of your life where certain things get ingrained into you that will stick forever. Music being one of them. That's why when you get older, you always go back to that era. But anyways, and I'm thinking a lot of what I was into at that time has shaped this one. I would love to talk about too. Matter of fact, I think those things that I was into a lot of West Coast rap, a lot of hip hop, but a lot of the East Coast and a lot of the underground and that grit and stuff that you had mentioned. Music was a heavy influence on me. And then going back to the psychedelics, I was big into that and ambient type music, electronic music. Yeah, you name it. So I guess I see a lot of that now, and I haven't really thought about or looked at it until, you had mentioned it. I don't
Yeah,
think about it too
yeah.
much, but it's interesting.
I saw your series On the Wire. I know you want to talk about this. Let
Oh,
me come back
yes.
to that really
Yes.
in just a moment. But I wanted to show On the Wire because when I saw
Let's.
that, I definitely said this is someone that has some hip hop and street influence in what they do.
Yeah, this one broke my heart, to be honest, and it's not dead. It's not dead by any means. I'm glad you brought this one up. So funny enough, there's another person in the space, and this guy is such a champ of a person. I'm glad that I didn't let some of the initial emotions get the best of me to not reach out to this person. But Uncle Jut, you may know, or people listening may know, so how do I'm getting lost in my thoughts here. So yes, growing up, I grew up with a lot of friends who were gang affiliated. I had a trouble past, like I said. A lot of that had to do with being mixed up with those people. I spent a lot of time in, you know, I'm not a super politically correct person, so I'm just going to say I spent a lot of time in ghetto neighborhoods. I didn't grow up well off financially, relatively speaking, and so I spent a lot of time in these areas. And this is where you see these shoes hanging from wires in these areas, and lower income areas, or older areas rather, where you see a lot of lower income families living, is because you've got wires that have what are called supply drops, where they go from the main to the houses and whatnot. So anyways, there's a cool history behind it. But anyways, that's just that urban iconic visual that we all are familiar with. I thought when I came into Web3 and I started seeing people put together cohesive collections and making it like, why would somebody want to collect a photo or whatever? I never thought about it. And then when I started thinking about it, I started thinking, well, what the hell can I put together as a collection? I've never really thought about it. I saw Row Homes by Chris, I forget his last name, but I'm sure everybody knows who he is. Row Homes was a collection of row homes. And I was in San Francisco, like I said, when I was out there for work, and I had saw a pair of shoes hanging from a wire at night, and I took a photo of it, and it's on my feed somewhere, but I took a photo of it, and that's when it hit me. And this was like November of 2020, 2021. I don't know. Anyways, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go around and collect photos of shoes and make a collection of it, but I wanted them in classic black and white, and I wanted it minimal. And so that's where the thought came from. It started snowballing. I started taking a ton of photos. I drove through a ton of hoods, got confronted a ton of times, because a lot of these places, you're in these areas, and all of these were taken during the day. So people are out in these places, and a lot of these are in front of people's houses. And so, what the hell are you doing? Where are you photographed? Blah, blah, blah. And, some were sniped from the window of my car. Others I'm walking, through an alley to track them down because I saw them from my car. But yeah, I just started stacking up all these photos, and then I started leaking it out because I was getting ready to put the collection out. And then somebody tagged me in a DM and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And it was Uncle Jut's Shufiti project. And I was like, damn, nah, man, I thought I was the only one. I hadn't seen anybody talking about it, and I thought I was going to be first to the jump. And this particular person, he's a lot more known and supported in the community, and the photography community is a small community within Web3. And so, he was getting shares by like DZ and freaking, I don't know, a lot of big names, a lot of big collectors.
Right.
And so I'm like, shit. So anyways, I hit him up, and I was just like, hey man, just letting you know, whatever, I've, what, blah, blah, blah. Anyways. And that conversation went well. And he was like, dude, I'll be there to support you. And I was like, vice versa. And I put mine out, and it pretty much flopped. He put his out. He sold out in like 2 days at 0.25. And I'm like, damn, this fool sold out like 50 photos of like 0.25. And, you know, I think I sold maybe like 6 or 7 in like 2 weeks at 0.06, but that's power community. And, you know, whether or not people know who you are and want to get behind you. And it was cool. But I, I put this out a long time ago, and I tried to get some traction. I tried to put it out. I thought it was a relatively respectable price point for what it is, and the mileage, you know, put into it, and curation and everything else. And it didn't pick up for reasons that I know and don't know. So I burned a lot of them,
Right.
and there are a few left. And part of the thing that I wanted to do with this project, and like I said, it's not dead, and I still will move forward with it when the time is right, is I want this project to continue into a few more collections, and I want to take proceeds and I want to put these into the communities that I'm taking these from, to help kids that are growing up in these situations, similar situations that I grew up in and had friends that grew up in, and help out. I made a lot of good connections with the charity startup that I was working on at the time, and reached out to some, you know, with just kind of pinging them for interest on helping out with some of the ideas I have for this project, you know, to auction off custom one of ones, and 100% of the profits go towards the cause, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's kind of been backburnered until, from what I've learned, I need to gain more traction in the space to where I put it out and it actually does something that's going to be impactful within the communities I want it to impact.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I love this one right here, this shot, which is taken, obviously, the one that I love. But either way, I think that you're right. It's a dope collection, and you know, it's all about narrative sometimes in Web3, right? And obviously, the other creator had narrative going into
Yeah.
his release, and you know, as you're building your following with some of your experimentation, you know, you can revisit this as well. I do think that one thing that's good, and this is just my personal opinion, because everyone can art the way they want to art.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that said, man, I got into the NFT space and I put this out, I put that out. I feel like I over minted. I did too many things, which is up to, you know, everyone has different opinions. But one thing that you seem to have done intuitively is kind of partition where you did the experimentation, right? So like,
Mhm.
because on Sloika is where you have, you know, this macro photography, and you know, because this is, you know, a specific collection just in that vein, because it's kind of segmented that way, it doesn't really affect some of your other collections in the same way that if someone just minted 100 different things under one
Right.
banner, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that, you know, you have the opportunity to revisit this stuff for sure. Adam, really quickly,
Yep.
because I've been enjoying this conversation so much, I might run out the clock, and then I'll
Oh,
be
yep.
upset
Yep.
with myself. I wanted to make sure I get the POAP. We have a POAP as part of our whale media here. Any spaces or media stream that you check out, we most likely have a POAP, which will be integrated into different access stuff for whale in the future. But aside all that, is just a cool way to have a memento from your experiences in Web3 and talk about the things that you were a part of. So we do it here by using the POAP app on your phone. If you tuned into our spaces, you are familiar with that. Pull up the POAP app on your phone. If you do not have the POAP app, go ahead and download it. It's really quick, and we give away our POAPs via secret phrase. So if you have that, pull it open. The bottom right-hand corner, you see the plus button. Activate secret phrase, and the secret phrase for today's POAP is on the wire. On the wire.
Nice.
Total coincidence with the timing here, but it worked out, and I like it.
Perfect.
Serendipitous.
Yes.
I did want to go back to here. You said you wanted to talk a bit about this piece.
Yeah. How much time do we have? Is it 1 hour? Are we stopping on the hour?
Yeah, I got about 15 more minutes.
Okay. I talk too much, so feel free to
No,
cut
no,
me
no,
off. I
you're
won't
good. I
hate
would,
it.
no, it's actually a good thing, because you know, I'm so into this conversation, it would go 2 hours, but then I'd have mini nightmare waiting at school wondering where I'm at. So we'll work it out.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So this one, I would say if there's any one photo that I would consider a grail photo for me, this would be the one. This, I believe, was my first ever mint. Or maybe this was my first mint on Foundation after I finally got an invite forever and a day. But this one is sentimental in a sense of the whole timing of it all. First of all, just a photo in and of itself. I don't think I'll ever capture light breaking through clouds like that when there's a small plane flying by. Just all the meaning that's tucked into that in and of itself in the moment. This was an Arizona monsoon storm that I was watching from my balcony as I was out there reflecting on things going on in my life, which were the thick of COVID. My wife, bless her heart, she is a trauma nurse at a level 1 trauma center and is in the ER and was knee deep in all that COVID stuff. At the time, my father, who is in his mid 70s, was living with us, battling a stage 3 cancer. And things were touch and go with that whole situation. And just the nerves of, my wife coming home after work, the processes to prevent him from getting COVID while he was going through, chemo and radiation. Just a lot of stuff was going on. And, I went outside to kind of just clear my thoughts. Monsoon storm was rolling in. And as I was watching the clouds do their thing, I was like, you know what? I should go grab my camera. Cause I do when I go out on my balcony and I look off to the west, there's a small airport that planes fly by. And I wasn't thinking about the planes at the time, but I was more so watching the clouds. So I grabbed my camera and I watched this plane fly through, and then I watched the light break, and then, that happened. And this is damn near straight out of camera. There's very minimal editing to this, more so just exposure. Cause I like the way it looks straight out of camera. But the thing about this that really struck a chord is when I was editing that photo. This is one of these photos where I immediately had to edit it. I went into my office downstairs and my dad was on the couch and I could hear him coughing and just kind of noises from being in pain and tired, and it chokes me up every time. So forgive me. When I was sitting there editing it, I was thinking about all that, and the words and feelings came into my mind. Like I had this overwhelming feeling of peace came over me. And the words that came into mind were to fear not. And to, I can't, the words are in there, but it is more so like to fear not. The sunshine you seek is just a cloud away. And, there's a Pharrell song out. Maybe the words came from that, but I think it was more spiritual at the time that everything was going on. And I just, yeah, man, it was such a heavy moment for me, such an impactful photo, just a random occurrence to go out. I take that back. Not to me, it's not a random occurrence, but, this photo is probably my favorite photo of any photo I've ever taken.
Wow.
And I put that out there on the block, and I feel this is easily a 10 ETH photo, but I put it out there because I want it, like you were saying earlier, I want it to live for as long as it can live. And that's the best place to put it for that. And if somebody wants to have that, and feel that, or whatever they're going to feel from it, cool. I mean, I've got the raw files. It'll always be with me too, but to share that moment and to share that with somebody, that's what that photo is. I'm glad we ended on that. Cause like I said, that one to me is my favorite photo that I've ever clicked.
That's beautiful. And
sorry for getting personal. I mean,
no, what do you mean? That's what we need. That's, what, for me personally, collecting NFTs is a very experiential thing, and to be able to share that and have some kind of intimate connection with a creator, or a piece, and also where it's coming from, is invaluable. That's the key differentiator for me on why I like to be in this space and collecting versus just randomly downloading something and having it on my desktop, right? There's a distinct difference. So sharing that is a beautiful thing, and thank you so much for doing it, both in your artwork and giving more context here with everyone. I know we're up against the hour, Adam, but if you got a few more minutes, I did get some questions from the community that I'd love to run by you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Someone asked, do you create in any other mediums? You're so creative.
Like I mentioned earlier, I do like to draw and sketch when I can. I haven't done it, to be honest, for a little while, but I really love that kind of art. So yeah, I would say pencil and pen drawing.
Okay,
Music. I don't do music, but I love it.
very cool. Someone asks, how did you find your way into crypto and NFTs?
Gary V.
Gary V.
Gary V of all people. Yep. Owning a lot of businesses. I liked a lot of his videos. I stumbled upon him on YouTube. And so, Gary V started talking about NFTs and things of that nature. I mean, crypto, I was exposed to crypto before NFTs. My father-in-law mined some coins, and I almost bought Bitcoin when it was at $300 and $600. And that's when I owned one of my businesses. I almost went, a few good $1,000 in, but didn't. So, but NFTs came through Gary V.
We had a writer on staff, Typo, who was totally new to everything via Gary V, and now he's like one of the most adept and learned people in the space, making guides for other people. So, good start that you had there. Someone asked, "What are your thoughts on scarcity in photography NFTs?"
I wanna say I don't give a either way, but I also know that there's a game to play, and that's part of it. I would lie if I said I'm not trying to have my art collected and to, make, this a financial thing. So I think there is a place for scarcity. I think more than scarcity, curation, and not just putting everything out there, being strategic about what is your best work and only putting that out. And if you want to put out a handful of it, I mean, that's to each their own. I'm still learning. So I don't think I have an answer that would be substantial.
Someone asked, and I'll leave it up to your imagination, who do you think you're gangster?
That person already knows the answer. Oh man, gotta love them.
What is your favorite piece of gear?
My favorite piece of gear is my freaking camera. But a good camera bag actually is even better. I think because I mean, I don't know. Camera. I would say camera because I don't carry a tripod often. So it's a camera, and I shoot mostly on a 90mm macro and a 20mm. I shoot primes. So
okay, I think you just answered. Someone just asked, what camera do you use for your plane shots?
You know what? Some of those. Okay, so when I had my Canon T6i, I did have a zoom. It was a 70 to 300, and on a crop, you get pretty good distance out of it. So this one was taken on that. But right now, I sold all that stuff, and I have a Sony A7R4, an 85 1.4. Samyang Sigma 20mm 1.4, and a Sony G Master 90mm 2.8, and that's my gear.
Someone asked, what other media would you say were influences in your aesthetic and art style besides music? So I guess not other photography stuff. I guess like shows or books or.
Yeah, that's well, I did a lot of drugs in my younger years, so my memory's not the best at those years, but man, I was big into like the old school cartoons, Looney Tunes, things like that. There's a lot of dark stuff that's twisted up in those, so maybe that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, I like a good drama movie.
Yeah, random aside, Tiny Toons is kind of dark. I tried to show that to my, and I was like, man, this is kind of disturbing. I don't know if I can let him watch it. What the hell is I been watching this?
Yeah, 100%, man. I went through that same thing with my kids, and I was like, wait a minute, wait. So yeah,
I got like 20 minutes into Gremlins, and I'm like, yeah, we're not ready to reveal all these secrets yet. We got to cut the cord here. I can't believe I watched this when I was a kid.
Yep, a lot of those 80 movies, dude. I was big on that. So yeah, that's probably where a lot of this stuff subconsciously is all starting to come out.
Uh, Thank you so much for answering some of those. There's some that I can't even reveal to you. They're so ridiculous. But we'll save them maybe for an extension of this on Twitter. I did want to cap this off by
Yep.
anything that you want to let us know that you're working on. I did see that you have an open edition on Manifold right now.
Oh, thanks for the plug. Yep. Yeah. So this is another one of those experimental things. I have a lot of nature photos, a lot of things that I would love to put out and test the water. And this is kind of one of those things. I'm testing waters. I actually had this reserved to be a 1 of 1, but I thought, what the hell? Let's put it out there and make it a price that is. I mean, it's less. It's like $8 right now with what ETH is at. Maybe it went back up to 9. So that's my way to test the waters with my community, the support, what people like who are following me, because and it's minted. What is that? 18 now. So I don't know. Yeah, I want to drop a nature collection, but I really am focused on what I can do impactful in the community with access to this. So the On the Wire is a slow boil. And I would really like to make some moves with my ground game and my macro. I think if I had to put a priority, my abstract macro and the On the Wire, because of the impact it can make in the community, would be 2 of my priorities. Everything else is just kind of getting things out there and just getting in front of people, because I want to make a mark in the space, and I do want to have this be a financial lane and to be able to give back. I've always had a heart to give, because I came from nothing. And so I still stay grounded to my communities and help when I can within my means. And I see this a fantastic tool to do it. So
Yeah. And I love that experience breeds empathy. So appreciate you remembering where you came from and trying to connect the dots there. I'll be keenly watching. There's some that I'm pretty hyped about. So, I'm going to stay in the loop and in the know. For anyone not following Adam, you can go ahead to Adam Carity on Twitter. And he has a link to his link tree and all of his different sites there. Or you can just check the comments if you're watching this on Twitter on the Whale Members account. We've linked to his various resources there. This video will be up. If you missed the beginning of it, be sure to check the rest of it and tap in. Adam has some cool stuff in store, I am sure, in the near future. Adam, thank you so much for chopping up with us today. Hope to continue to see you have success and gain traction on your ground game and all other ventures, and be able to give back to the communities that mean so much to you.
Nightmare, man. I appreciate the opportunity. And for everybody who's tuned in, thank you for taking time out of your day to sit here and listen to me babble on. I appreciate you guys.
Never a babble. It's much better than listening to me babble. We appreciate you. Have a great one.
Love you guys. Thanks, man.